go. All right. So here we are again at the towards the end of the day of the 10X Growthcon 2020, first day. So if anybody was watching earlier or decided to go back and watch it earlier, it was kind of ironic because we were talking about technical difficulties at the Growthcon and how, I freak out about that stuff every now and then, blah, blah, blah. And about 30 seconds after that, the internet went out.
Yeah.
And then the internet
came back.
So I was like, cool, everything's good.
However,
I realized in replaying it that we lost all the audio that we talked about. So all the actual important audio that we had didn't seem to show up. So the first thing I'm going to do right now is test and make sure that people can hear us. So Justin, you talk for a second.
Yes, because even though it says on here that, yes, people can hear us, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's coming through right there. We had some great things to talk about earlier today. It has been quite an interesting experience, just spending time watching all the speakers and hearing it.
Cool. Okay.
Yes. Keep going. And I'm sure it's been an interesting experience for me, not having watched all the Growthcons over the past couple of years. I am curious kind of what your thoughts have been going through a few. So to now what we've experienced today, how it's compared.
So far, so we'll have to kind of talk a little bit more about the morning again, just as but the big thing that we talked about right after we died earlier was that the first big guest was President Trump, and that was kind of big. It was very polarizing. Let's see. Joe says, "Dang, is that dang we look so good, Joe, or is that dang you're upset that we messed up last time?" Either way, we'll take it like that first one. But so far today has been a little bit more sales pitchy for Cardone's stuff. Now, again, we talked about it earlier a little bit that you're going to get some of that in these big conferences. There's always some kind of offer. There's some kind of pitch. There's some kind of something else that's going to help us grow our businesses. And normally, the last two that I've seen, they sprinkle that throughout the weekend. So they'll have a speaker, and then they'll do a little pitch, and then speaker, and so forth and so on. The whole morning session turned into kind of a sales pitch today.
It did.
But then we realized, well, that was mostly because their first speaker was Donald Trump.
Yes.
And having filmed the Daytona 500 before, inside jokes don't work when they don't get them.
No.
So I was filming the Daytona 500 a few years ago. And
I've always liked inside jokes. I'd like to be a part of one someday.
Right. And Trump was there. And the amount of security and just ridiculousness that comes along with the president and Secret Service being there just complicates the whole thing. So what it seems like it turned into was he was supposed to come on at a certain time, and for whatever reason, a solid hour and a half later, he came on. So it was definitely a little bit different so far. Today was a lot
No.
Next
year, I'll do this with my more competent tech guys. Next year, I'll do this with my more competent.
Oh, good. That did make it.
Yes,
that did make it to the screen. Awesome. Fantastic.
Just what you love to hear.
It's a weird little loop of the audio. Okay, here we go. This is why you test things like this when you're not, getting paid for it. So we can work it out for the next people that want to go live. So
there you go. Glad to be the guinea pig.
Right. So Trump was great.
Trump
Spent a lot of Cardone stuff.
So what happened after? Let's just keep going.
Just keep going.
Ignore everything else that has happened.
Right.
After Trump, he did a question and answer. That was actually one of my favorite parts so far.
Mm-hmm.
He did a question and answer with one of the guys on his team. Pete Vargas, one of the kind of hosts of the conference, did a little question and answer talking about some business stuff and just different things that companies should look for depending on where they are in the stage that they're at.
Right.
Some ways to tell if your organization, your business is actually set up to grow. If you have the type of business that you can even look at and say, my business could be a $50 million company someday or $100 million company someday. That little 30-minute conversation has been one of my favorite parts so far. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, this guy, Brandon Dawson,
that's the name.
Is the guy on Cardone's team now. He's built a ton of businesses over the years, and he just had a lot of great stuff to say. They definitely know their stuff in the world of Cardone. They're doing a lot of different things. They've got a new healthcare thing they're coming out with, which was a little bit strange, but also kind of cool. And that's what I loved last year more than just about anything was when they brought on the real life examples of companies. So, it's easy to say, oh, okay, well, Trump is Trump, and A-Rod's a baseball player, or Kevin Hart's a comedian. But when they bring on, a plumbing company that had 10 years of being a $1 million company and was just stuck, and now they joined in and did this, and this, and now they're a $10 million company. Those are the kind of stories that are really a lot more valuable to, I think, guys like us, definitely guys like me. It's we're definitely in the small business world of business. So
yes, and you and I think have talked about this before, but small business means a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Yeah.
Small business can be making $250K a year. Small business can be making $25 million a year.
Right. And
everything in between.
Yeah.
So
and also a lot of people look at it differently. Is that you could be doing 25 million in revenue, but if your business costs $24.5 million to run, then are you really a $25 million company? Yes. So there's lots of ways to look at that. For sure.
And those are conversations that I end up having with a lot of people too. Is what you actually want from your business. What's the difference between having a business that you can say, yes, our revenues were 25 million, but it cost 24 million to run, and this is what our profit was, versus someone that they're a solo guy and they're making 250K a year just by themselves, and that's it.
Right.
But they're taking a lot of it home and just living a good life and spending time with their wife and kids, and that's all they really want to do. So it is interesting listening to what people are actually doing in their businesses and what they actually want to get out of it is always a conversation I like having with people.
Yeah. You should go into this kind of in that field.
Maybe I should have. You might be onto something.
Right.
So we don't need to spend much more time with Trump, especially since we talked about him.
Yeah, Trump's good.
But after that, his wife, Elena, went up and spoke a little bit. So, Jared, what did you think of what his wife shared?
So I will say Elena Cardone
has
given some very, very impressive presentations over the years that I've watched.
Keep in mind, this is going out to the interwebs, so this will be here forever.
Correct. Okay. That's why I'm trying to be as nice as possible. She's done great. She's a great person. She's very supportive in the community. She's got all of her own little side businesses going.
Yes.
Today was basically weird family story time, and she got really emotional a few times in strange ways that I was not expecting.
Yes.
And
there was the whole dog garden hose enema that
it was
weird stories.
I feel like, and there was at least twice where someone else came on and said, "Hey, stay on script." So I think she just got a little excited and went off script a little bit. So it was definitely not my favorite portion of the Growthcon or any Growthcon I've seen or anything I've ever watched in my life. But I would say it was interesting to say. I feel like what she was going for. I wrote it down. Basically,
you got notes from hers?
And I did. I took one small note. So basically, her whole spiel was if you're going to work as a team in your personal life, obviously her husband is Grant Cardone. It was a 3 steps. She said, get on the same page, be willing to sacrifice, like the whole, live like no one else so you can live like no one else kind of thing.
That's good.
And then, and work hard. So probably could have been summed up in somewhere between 45 seconds and 7 minutes. And she was on there for what, 45 minutes?
45.
So,
but I did have 2 really, really cool takeaways from the whole thing, or just from her talk. The first being the fact that it was his conference and he got to do whatever he wanted to do. And I do respect that. And I respect the idea, and you and I were talking about it kind of as we've been watching today, of it's that whole idea of making the table if someone doesn't have a table for you already.
Right.
And Grant Cardone speaks at other people's conferences. He speaks on other stages. He does what he wants to do, and people invite him all the time. But there's a lot of value in you setting up something to where the people that you want to have speak, the people that you want to have talk, they get to do that. And so I think there's a lot of value in creating the environment that you want instead of simply relying on waiting for somebody else to invite you to come speak at their conference. And so
what he's saying is be on the lookout for the scope.
MesmerEyes
SXOPE
Eyes. Yes.
SXOPE. We'll work on the branding later.
Yeah.
But no, I love that's definitely a good point. Create your own stage. If you can't get on the other people's stages or you don't like the other stages, make your own stage.
Yeah, and we kind of laughed at that. He's being smart. Grant Cardone was being smart. He's letting his wife talk when she does have something valuable to say, and he's smart enough to let her be one of the speakers at his conference.
Right.
There is some value in that. But the cool thing that I did take away, other than that fact, was just how long it really did take them to get them to where they are now. I think he said today he's 65. They've been married almost 20 years. And she told a bunch of stories of the beginning parts of their relationship. Lots of stories. Is that enough?
A lot of stories.
So many stories. Yeah. But the early parts of their marriage, of their relationship, of their, when their kids were little, of just the ways that they sacrificed, the ways that they, that quote earlier, live like no one else so you can live like no one else.
Yep.
But a lot of times we ascribe that to really early in life of 22-year-olds sleeping on a couch. And we forget sometimes that people can be 42, still going through that stage. They can be 38, still going through that stage, and looking at where they are now at 65, and they're doing okay for themselves.
There's so much of that out there. Like, it's never too late. It doesn't matter where you are in life. You can always start over. And I think that was really the overall point of her story. It's, if you're working with your spouse, or if you have someone to work with, get on the same page, but also, like you said, he was 35 or something and he was still doing nothing.
Yes.
45 and he was still not doing much. No one really, his president of Cardone Enterprises, Jared Glint, is, what do you say, 30 something?
Yeah, 33.
Either way, 11 years ago he started with Grant, and that was a time where there was not a Growthcon. No one really knew. Not many people knew who Grant Cardone was, even when Jared started with him. And now Jared himself is worth like $13 million and all this stuff. So,
and you even look at, we mentioned this on the audio earlier, where you didn't hear the audio, but
you can read all this.
But this is what, year 6 of Growthcon, not counting the 0 year.
Yeah.
So they had a 0 year where they had 80 people show up. That was only 7 years ago. That's not that long ago. Yeah. And so you look at someone like him that, yes, is flying around on private jets, and whether that's your end goal or not, we get caught up in how long things take to come to fruition sometimes. So it was cool to hear those stories.
And I also love it when people like that, she got there and said, like, we were flying coach.
Yes.
You're still flying on an airplane. Like, that's still better than probably 80% of the world. It's just, but yeah, I'm excited to get to business class someday. We'll see. But it was pretty interesting. And then And what they do next, they went into pet health.
And doesn't know, before I got into what I do now with leadership coaching and team development and all that, I was in the fitness world for a long time. And it was actually guys like this guy, Gary Brecka was his name, that was one of the things that let me know that I wasn't going to be in it long term, because I was never the guy that was going to go that deep into the science of nutrition and biohacking and that sort of thing. And there's certainly people out there that were successful that didn't go quite as deep as him, but there's a lot of truth to what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of truth to us approaching physical challenges and health issues in ways that aren't just big pharma, that aren't just what the government tells you this is what is going to work for you to get healthy again. And so hearing him talk about all that was really interesting. We don't need to get into all of that on this, I don't think.
The craziest part that I heard, and I'm not on these by any means, but I've known plenty of people, but apparently, according to this science guy and a lot of the chat room, that antidepressants are only supposed to last 3 months. And people are prescribed for them for 20 years. So there's something behind that.
Yep.
And if you'd like to know more, just bring 3 of your friends over to my house. But the other thing, one of the quotes I got out of it said, sitting is the new smoking.
Yes.
That's the whole concept is, we all need to be healthier so we can live longer. And there's so many of us that are sitting at desks all day. That is terrible for our health and well-being. So.
Yeah. Even with him, I think this kind of goes to my big takeaway from the entire day of even his journey in his career and the 20 years that he's been doing this as a scientist. What was it, 2019 or something like that was when everything exploded for him.
Right.
And so just the way now he's one of the leading experts in the world, and people are asking him to come on their talk shows and all this stuff. And that type of hustle, I guess, it's kind of cool to see. And just in the sense of the longevity of, no, I really believe in this. I really think this is important. And I'm just going to stick with it until it comes through. See somebody else coming up on stage in the other room right there.
Fertitta, his name, not a name I recognize.
No.
So we're going to just skip that for now.
Okay.
Go back to it in a minute. So after the health guy talked, they brought up Jordan Freed, who is a crypto guy. And he talked a lot.
He did.
And I understood pretty much all of it, except for the fact that I understood literally none of it, which is pretty much my role, my role in the world of crypto right now. And I'm sure if Bronson happens to see this, or buddy Bronson, he's gonna have some issues with what I just said. But
Jimmy Allen, if you're watching this, yes,
you guys, so come teach us about crypto. But no, the cool thing that I took away from Jordan. Well, it was funny because he kept trying to. He said, "Oh, I'm going to date myself like he's some old guy."
That was the
like,
funniest thing.
He's like what, 30?
Yeah,
he's
like I was 12 in 2005.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you're not old. And
no,
he was saying he tried to make a few relatable jokes, and it was just funny. It's like, dude, you're young.
Yes,
but he actually, he's the owner of NFT.com, which is pretty impressive.
Yes,
and every time I've bought a domain, I go to GoDaddy, and it's like $12. And he apparently spent $2 million just to buy the domain name NFT.com. And then like a year later, it was worth in the $30 or $40 million range and all this stuff. So he's and it was kind of a neat story because he got started back when he was 12 on a game called RuneScape.
Did you play RuneScape?
I did not.
I did not either.
It was
okay. Into that story.
Nice fill in.
Yeah,
but
you're welcome.
He was basically buying and selling some kind of digital currency for this game, and then he got sued by the makers of RuneScape, and so he had to stop
At 12 years old.
At 12 years old,
yep.
And he had to then he moved. That was one of my favorite. He was like, I moved to this little place called Budapest, Hungary. Like if anyone's heard of it, I'm like, you just named a country.
Yeah.
So that was one of his trying to be relatable jokes. But moved to Budapest and honestly accidentally fell into cryptocurrency and VPNs, and now he's a 30-year-old, probably close to billionaires, which is kind of crazy. But he seemed to really know his stuff, and he knows a lot more than I do about crypto for sure.
More than both of us combined.
I would imagine so.
Yeah. And that's kind of where we left it off. So we decided to come in here and jump on and kind of talk about it. So let me ask you this then. After the first full day, if you had to boil it down to one big takeaway based on everybody that we've heard, what would it be? Just one. You get one.
I get one?
You only get one.
I'll use one of my favorite Trumps, my favorite quotes from Mr. Trump.
Of course it's a Trumpism. Go for it.
Basically, he said, just get it done. Don't wait. Just get it done. Just like, unlike Napoleon.
Yes.
So there was a whole weird random story that may or may not even be close to true. I don't know. It was a bit of a Trumpism, but, just get it done. And the concept behind that was don't wait for perfect conditions. Make it happen.
Russia was involved. Napoleon, woman, winter. Yeah, it was. That's a fair one, though.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, the concept is get it done. Don't wait for conditions to be perfect.
Yes, I like it. Yeah, I'd have to say that mine, I mean, you didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you anyway, that mine was going back to what I mentioned earlier of just having people around you that are supporting your ideas, that are helping push you forward, and just the value of that, of Trump. Cardone really has just built this little world around him with his businesses and his ideas and his corporations and the people that help run them.
Yep.
And it goes to the health guy, Gary Brecka. He came on stage because even though 2 years ago, no one knew who he was, because he got involved, he showed Grant something that worked. And now he's on stage in front of millions of people around the world. Yeah. And it's just being in those circles, how far that really goes, it goes a long way. So we're starting our own little circle here.
Yep.
And in 7 years, you'll see it.
Oh,
yeah. But just that aspect of it and the way that he has continued to pour into the people around him. And the younger guy, Jordan, is an example of that he's been there. He picked him up as he was a young kid, 22, right. But a young kid, and has stuck with him and kept pouring into him. And the kid was coachable and teachable, and now he's worth millions of dollars and living a pretty good life. So that was cool to me. Yeah. Just how Grant does continue to do that and pour back into his people, and it's kind of cool to see.
Cool. All right, well, that's it for day one. Yeah, it's actually still going on a little bit. There's a few things that we may or may not check in on, but as far as we are concerned today, and technically this is probably really the first official full video.
We don't have to talk about that.
Yeah, it's all good.
It's been an experiment. That's all this has been.
It's going on tomorrow and Sunday. I know for sure I'll be here all day Sunday. Tomorrow will be a little hit or miss for both of us. But like I said, if anybody wants to come by and watch it, let me know, and we'll make it happen. We'll find a way. We're here in downtown Woodstock. So, yeah. There we go.
I think that's about all I got, too.
I'll
be here a lot tomorrow. Maybe not as much as you on Sunday, but
yeah,
come by and see us.
We'll figure it out. See you guys.